pouring one out for Dan Campbell. Just like that. Just a little bit of water.
That's what Fawn Turner will do for you.
A little bit. Actually, maybe a little bit more water all over the floor.
Sammy couldn't wait for this. He cannot wait to trash Dan Campbell.
Going on, everyone. Bearbits Podcast is back, your NFL Conference Championship edition. I am the Bear, Chris Fallica. Be joined shortly by my co-host Geoff Schwartz, Sammy P and Will Hill coming up a little bit later in the gambling group chat. And finally, Geoff, we had a dog bark on the money line as the Washington Commanders went into Detroit and I believe punted once and just absolutely put on a show offensively against the Detroit Lions. Hopefully, we're going to get the take the points crowd. You know, when it's 4th and 4 and you got to take the points. Hopefully that is a nice RIP for the take the points crowd as the Commanders with those 4th down conversions made the most of it, and they advanced to the NFC Championship game. And we'll talk about the Conference Championship games coming up with at length with Sammy P and Will. But I think we really need to maybe just put a little bow tie on the Lions this year. Yeah. Obviously, a great regular season, a ton of injuries at the end of the season probably cost them at least, I would say, a win here, maybe a Super Bowl berth. But this week, obviously, the news: Aaron Glenn moves to the Jets, Ben Johnson moves to the Bears, so you lose both coordinators. And just kind of a point now with the Eagles where they are. With the Niners, did they rebuild? The Packers in that division? Seems like the NFC is very competitive, and you probably aren't going to get the same type of year offensively from Jared Goff and Gibbs and all the players that the Lions have on offense. And last year, you lose in the NFC Championship game to the Niners. This year, you lose as the 1 seed on your home field in the divisional round. Is that window either closing or closed, or what? Do we think Dan Campbell and that staff can recoup?
Well, it's certainly closing, Bear. I don't know if it's closed yet, but they lose their OC and their DC, and then their D-line coach, who went with Aaron Glenn to the Jets, and they might lose other coaches as well. There's talk about their offensive line coach, who is doing a fabulous job as a potential offensive coordinator candidate in Seattle, I believe. So you keep losing these coaches; they're hard to replace, right? Ben Johnson did a great job with that offense, designing it around Jared Goff. And look, we see in some of these bigger moments that there's some limitations with Jared Goff. It's not why they lost the game against the Niners a couple of years ago, but he didn't play well last weekend, right? I mean, they scored a bunch of points, but those turnovers are a big deal. They are a problem. They led to a touchdown for the Commanders, and I think that is a concern in these bigger moments if Jared Goff is up to the task when you lose your offensive coordinator now. And so it's a year older for Goff, a year older for everyone else. You look around the division, you look at Jay Daniels now making the ascension for quarterback where he's at, how much better the Commanders will be next season. I think the Cowboys will be better with a new coach. I mean, the NFC is going to keep being good and being competitive. So I do think the window is closing. I'm not saying it's closed because, look, injuries tend to be return to the mean the next season, right? So basically, they were missing 13 of 22 on their 2 deep on defense for that.
Look at the 49ers this year.
So, yes.
Last year when they got the Super Bowl, they really had no interest. This year, it was over before it started.
The Lions will be healthier on defense next season, but again, new defense coordinator, something different next season. Offense, something different next season. So I do think it's okay to say that they have this 2-year run. It has gone really well, but it's probably not going to be as good next season. It doesn't mean they can't get back to where they are. They're not going to be a playoff team. I'm not saying all those things, Bear, but I think it's reasonable to say that the window is closing a little bit on the Lions. They had a home field advantage this season. A dome team, this is their season to do it. Unfortunately, injuries on defense really hurt them.
Yeah, obviously you look at the injuries there with the Lions and the 2 fan bases where it was kind of like, maybe I don't want to say Super Bowl or bust this year, but the Ravens found another way to lose a playoff game and a conference championship game, and Lamar had a bad fumble early on, and he took it kind of personally and put it on himself in the press conference. The Lions, again, an opportunity. You win 2 home games to get the Super Bowl. You couldn't do it. And you touched on it, Geoff, before. You talked about the ascension of the Washington football team, Washington Commanders, whatever you want to call them. They feel like they will certainly be, regardless of what happens this weekend in Philadelphia, they certainly feel like they will be the now team next year, and they'll be the team probably that a lot of people are going to pick to get the Super Bowl.
They should be. They're fantastic, and they're young with a lot of salary cap space and a quarterback who is a superstar on a rookie contract, Bear, with a head coach who's won in the two places he's been. Washington should be considered a favorite heading into next season.
Yeah, quarterback, rookie contract, certainly a very popular formula to have success in the playoffs, and we'll see how much success they will have coming up this weekend in Philadelphia. We'll see what Sammy P and Will Hill have to think about that in the Gambling Group chat. And here are the aforementioned Sammy P and Will Hill to kick around the NFC Championship game, which leads us to one of our Super 6 questions of the week presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Obviously, that question is, what will the outcome of the NFC Championship game be? Eagles to win by 6 points or more, or the Commanders to win the game or lose within 6 points, 5 points or fewer. So, Sammy, Will, I guess I'll start with you. Like, you're up here in freezing Connecticut with me, so we have a little bit of a compadreness working with us here. What are your initial thoughts here on this game?
Yeah, I mean, imagine if we're sitting here during the summer, August or whatever, say, hey, it's going to be an all NFC East title game. We said, finally, the Cowboys are back in this game, but obviously not the case, as the Commanders, just an incredible story, some ridiculous numbers in terms of being a long shot to win the Super Bowl, get to the Super Bowl. So it's a great story. I have a feeling that Cinderella, the clock strikes midnight here for Cinderella. I just think they've been so aggressive and so efficient on fourth down. I worry if I'm Washington that, one of these times they sit down at the blackjack table and the dealer just has a hot hand and throws a few 20s and 21s at you, and they come up empty. And if that's the case, this could get ugly. And the run defense, our buddy Aaron Schatz from FTN Fantasy, creator of DVOA, has some really concerning stats from Washington's standpoint of like, hey, run defense, 26 in DVOA, open field run defense, second level, all this stuff that makes you think Barkley, once he gets into the open field, and Philly, they do as good a job as anyone blocking, creating space. Can Washington contain him? So, Sammy, I just see a game where maybe similar to that Thursday night game in the middle of the season where it's close, maybe early fourth quarter, it's a one-possession game, and Philly just kind of pulls away late with their defense, with their running game. I think Philly wins the game by 7 to 10 plus points.
Let us start with pouring one out for Dan Campbell. Just like that. Just a little bit of water.
That's what Fon Turner will do for you.
A little bit. Actually, maybe a little bit more water all over the floor.
Sammy couldn't wait for this. He cannot wait to trash Dan Campbell. Cannot wait.
I hope the Eagles win. I do. And that Dan Campbell loss actually helped anybody holding an Eagles future, because now they're a 6-point favorite. Here are the quarterbacks that have played in NFC or AFC title games as rookies: Sean King, Roethlisberger, Flacco, Mark Sanchez, Brock Purdy, who did get hurt in that game. 0-5 straight up. Not the biggest sample size in the world, Bear, but this is the round where the lights get brighter, the stage gets bigger, and your opponents are better. Facing the Lions defense one week and the Eagles defense the next, Jeff, is like going from the JV to the varsity.
Jeff,
you want to gamble? You want to gamble on fourth down? I'm saying, you want to gamble on fourth down? Yeah. Good luck getting through Jalen Carter and company on that Eagles defense. The gambling works until it doesn't, and then you get blown out.
Jeff, it kind of feels like, I alluded to this to a couple people yesterday, about like it feels a little like you said, you mentioned Mark Sanchez. It feels a little like 2010 New York Jets to me, where you got to the playoffs, you got to go to the Colts and play Peyton Manning. We'll see what happens. Whatever. No expectations, and you win. Oh, okay, you got to play the Patriots now. They just beat us by 1 million on Monday night in New England last month. I'm not going to win that game. Whatever. And you win that game. And it's like, oh my God! Now we're one game away from the Super Bowl. And in Pittsburgh, we can go to Pittsburgh and win. We just beat the Patriots. We just beat Peyton Manning, and then kind of like the emotional and physical toll of that run. And it's like you just had nothing left in the tank for that game. And it's a divisional opponent too. Does that factor in? Third time now that this Eagles D has seen Jaden Daniels. Like, is that a bonus for Fangio in that D?
Not really, I don't think. I mean, it's hard to prepare for a quarterback that can move like Daniels no matter how many times you've seen him. I think the real issue for them is some of the injuries on the offensive line. I mean, Cosme being out is a big loss. He has played well for them this season. Now you don't have him against Jalen Carter. Not great. The Eagles play a ton of zone. They're going to try to keep everything in front of them. They're going to try to keep Jane Daniels in front of them, which I think they're going to be able to do. You mentioned the running stats. Eagles should run the ball all game, and we talk about Jalen Hurts and how healthy he is, and he might not have to do anything. He doesn't do anything much in the postseason anyways. In the 4 wins, we know he doesn't throw for a lot of yards. He just doesn't have to, right? Saquon Barkley is controlling the game. Sam mentioned something that's important on the 4th down plays for Washington. They're like in the 80 percentile for conversions. Let's say they go 1-5 in this game. What's the final score?
They get blown out.
They get blown out, right? Like it's that quick, right? You don't convert and you come back to the mean a little bit, come back to the middle a little bit. They were 4 for 5, I think, last week against the Lions on 4th down. Mm-hmm. That doesn't include the 12-man on the field penalty. That's now 5 for 6. 5 for 6 on 4th down attempts, right? I mean, 1 was an attempt, but that's ridiculous. You're not going 5 for 6 again on the road in Philly. So I think this all sort of comes to an end, but I do think this is a Jane Daniels game. Jane Daniels over pass attempts, over passing yards, he has to be the offense. Rush attempts, the numbers are really inflated because he does run the ball a lot, but I think over pass attempts, I think it's at 32.5 right now. It is he's going to throw the ball a lot in this game. He has to throw a lot. He has to throw a lot in this game.
And Will, Geoff alluded to the 4th down conversions. If you go back to that first meeting in Philly, on 3rd and 4th down combined, Washington was 4 or 14. So being, I think, on the road does matter. And you really, what you see them run for 228 in that first meeting. The second meeting, even with Kenny Pickett, a quarterback, they ran for 211. So it feels like even if Hurts is hindered, or if they even, God forbid, have to play Kenny Pickett, feels like it's going to be hard to slow the Eagles offense down.
Yeah, it sure does. And in terms of a prop, A.J. Brown under catches, 4.5 under yards. To me, you just have to watch the games. He is just not healthy. He's limping around between plays. He's not 100%.
Back down, Gambling Group Chat, kick around the AFC Championship game, the nightcap on Sunday afternoon, where the Chiefs are anywhere between a 1.5, 2-point favorite now over Buffalo. Tale of two teams that were absolutely dominated in the box score. Despite their wins over Baltimore and Houston. Bills obviously a big 3-0 turnover edge. And Geoff, once again, the Kansas City Chiefs, a beneficiary of some officiating that went their way.
You're not going to bait me, sir. You're not going to do it. We only have a certain number of minutes to talk about this game. We're not going to bait me into this conversation.
We can bleed into the digital section.
It will bleed in the digital section if you want to hear my comments on this. But yes, the Chiefs and Bills are meeting again, and these teams are different than when they played in the regular season. So that game matters. Of course it does, but the Chiefs are healthier on defense. The Bills are healthier at some positions. I don't think Brown played at right tackle. I don't think Milano played in that game. Their safeties are injured. I don't know what the status of them will be come Sunday. This game to me, gentlemen, if you feel the same way, feels like last 2-minute game. Like whoever has the ball last, whoever has a mistake. Look, Buffalo has the least amount of turnovers per offensive play, I believe, in NFL history this season. They don't turn the ball over. Chiefs haven't turned the ball over in 8 games. Actually, the last game they turned the ball over was that Buffalo game. Holmes threw interception early in that game, threw one late in that game. And it comes down to just who makes the mistake, who gets a little conservative, who has the bad special teams play. I don't think those are things we can handicap right now, Sammy. I lean Chiefs in this game because I've seen them win this game many times that Buffalo has not. And then the Chiefs defensively can do things with Watson back and make sure that the Bills passing game doesn't get going. I trust Mahomes, obviously, in this spot. But this game does feel like it's a very close game coming down to the wire.
That's why the first bet I made this week was a 2-team 6-point teaser. I know the Wong people are going to be up in arms, but I went Eagles down from 6 to pick and Bills up from 2 to 8. I got a guy that lets me tease minus 105 too, so it's really nice mathematically. Yeah.
Pass that one along after we get off the air here.
You know who it is, Bear. Don't lie. But yeah, you could do that 6-pointer at minus 110. It's a really good bet. Eagles to win, Bills plus 8 or 7.5, depending on what you have right now. Here's something really interesting though, Will, on the Bills team total. Joe Osborne does a great job for covers. The Bills run NFL best 15-4 to the over on their team total this year. 15-4. Team total on Buffalo, 23.5. I might end up on the over there. I might.
Yeah, I think this is a game where whoever you pick in terms of a side, if you get it wrong, you're going to feel just like the biggest idiot in the world, because if you bet against Mahomes and the Chiefs and you lose, you say, how could I bet against this guy at home? How many times do I need to see it? How could I bet against Mahomes? But by the same token, if you bet against the Bills, and the Bills finally pull through, doesn't it feel like the Bills are just kind of due to break through and win one of these games, and that Kansas City's a little bit vulnerable? They haven't played well defensively. Stroud moved the ball up and down the field on them. They didn't do much offensively. So I think I fall in the camp. I do fall in the camp where until I see it, I'm just going to pick the Chiefs by default. It's Andy Reid at home, Spagnuolo at home, Mahomes. I guess you start having to factor in the fact that, hey, if there's a 50-50 call, the Chiefs might get it. I know that's going to annoy Geoff, but hey, that's what home field advantage is for. You're going to get a 50-50 call here and there. So I like the Chiefs. I think that the Bills are a little bit vulnerable, middle of the field. I actually like the over more than anything, because these teams, it's interesting. Looking back in the regular season, they play a lot of unders, but in the postseason, they play nothing but overs. The game earlier in the season was over. I think they both get in that mentality of, hey, I need to outduel this other guy, go for it on fourth down, be aggressive. So you get these games where the winner is usually like in the 30s or so. So I do like the over, and I lean towards the Chiefs here.
It does feel. Again, I don't really have a strong play on the side. I hate to handicap on like emotion and overthinking this, but it almost has that feel of come full circle when the Bills couldn't finish off the game a few years back and losing in overtime so close. Like it's almost like okay, here's your spot. You're back at Arrowhead. It's your time now to go to the Super Bowl and win, just because of like. She's had 212 yards last week, Geoff. 4 yards a play.
Okay. Well, if you want to get into this, we certainly can. But they had 46 plays until the final drive of the game. Not a lot of plays. And then they lost 25 on the punt that they took a safety. Like it was an awkward offensive game from the beginning when they took the opening kickoff 65 yards and tack on the 15-yard penalty. They start off the first 15. I think they're going to be better on offense this week. I would not look at last week and think to myself, that's what the Chiefs are going to be offensively. That was an awkward game. The Bills defense is not as good as Houston. They're not. And so the Bills allowed, 8 yards of play to Baltimore? I think that's what it was.
Yes.
Tell me Chiefs can't move the ball in this game. I would just not use last week as an example or way to handicap the Chiefs offense heading into this game.
If you're looking at the Chiefs offense, like, the problem last week was it was nobody other than Travis Kelce did anything. It was like the whole, and it's great that you have the luxury of knowing that you've had all these playoff games for Travis Kelce and Mahomes, and he have a great rapport, but they're going to need to get something more on number 2.3 yards a carry. They're going to need to get either a little bit more of the running game involved or get Worthy or some of those other, like Hopkins. You sure? Okay.
Yeah, so I think last week was pretty simple. The Texans have really good corners, and
true, correct.
The Chiefs just said, we'll just take advantage of the middle of the field where they're not as good, and they didn't have to. Again, I'm wondering, like, sort of when you start, you have this first 15, right? That you plan out the first 15 plays, okay? And Andy Reid is meticulous about that. Then you have a first third down call for 3rd and 2, all the situations, first red zone call. So you practice this on Friday, on Saturday. It's like your best place, right? There's a rhyme and reason for them. And the way that game went, because of the kickoff return, they didn't start with the first 15. They started with red zone plays. And then then you work backwards. And they didn't even have enough plays in the first half to even get through that first 15. They were under 30 plays. And again, that's regular down distance. So third down doesn't really count. It was just an awkward offensive game for them because I think of just off 24 days of rest, plus the way the game started. They're going to be fine. They didn't have to target wide receiver. Now, if Hollywood Brown catches that ball, the one he was caught, we think differently about it. He dropped that ball, if you remember that. So I think this is a game where Hollywood Brown does get involved more often. I think this is a Noah Gray game. Noah Gray actually against Buffalo tends to have over. He has 13, 23, 14, and 16 yards receiving. His number right now is at 14.5. They tend to try to double Travis Kelce with Matt Milano now healthy and find ways to take away Kelce. And then, boom, here's Noah Gray. So I think she's going to be fine offensively, Bear. Will they run the ball? I don't know. Buffalo can stop the run pretty well. I do want to mention here, Buffalo's offensive line is fantastic. and it's going to be a fun game to watch these teams battle. I can't wait for this game.
Styles make fights, guys. Look at the 3 matchups they've had so far between these two quarterbacks in the playoffs. 38-24, 42-36, 27-24. Even on the low side, that's enough to get over. And all it takes is one drive for Buffalo, for Kansas City to go, all right, screw everything. We're going down the field now.
Yeah.
Houston lulled them into a rock fight. Houston did what Houston wanted to do. These two offenses don't want to do that. So the total at 47.5, I understand we've seen some money come under 48. I think that probably gets shoved back as we get closer, but the adjustments will be made by these offenses. Speaking of adjustments, did we not talk about betting Travis Kelce a week ago?
Yes.
Over 51.5. 51.5 was his receiving yardage number. Try 69.5, 70.5 right now.
Yeah,
they bumped his catch number up a whole catch. And the other thing, the touchdown market, he was plus 160. You're lucky to find a plus 120 right now in the market. They always catch up on Kelce. And it's so funny coming in every postseason. Oh, he's washed. Oh, this and that. They move his number up almost 20 yards after one game. They always catch up.
If you do like the under, if you do have the guts to take the under, I would suggest wait right until kickoff, because who's going to sit there and bet under on Kelce? You're going to get a good number than you're betting right now, a better number than you're getting right now. And the reason I ultimately side with the Chiefs, I don't know if it's been mentioned yet, the Bills are just due, and due is a dangerous word in betting, for some turnover aggression. Plus 24 this season in turnovers, plus 3 last week. They created 3 takeaways, they didn't turn it over yet. Yet in the postseason, man, that just that bill usually comes due at some point.
Yeah, I wish I could feel as confident as Sammy does in the Eagles winning that game, because Bills getting over a touchdown as a second leg, as a teaser leg is really, really tempting. That the Eagles Philly game just feels like a game to me where either Washington wins outright or they lose by like 14, 17 points, and the run finally comes to an end. Like it would, no result there would surprise you. But I love it. If you feel confident about that first game, I really do like it. If you can get the Bills over a touchdown, that Sammy, that teaser leg feels pretty strong.
Yeah, just tease it with the Senior Bowl, Bear. You've probably done that before, haven't you?
Pass.
Is the hula ball? Did we play the hula ball?
We used to bet. I remember in college we used to bet the Pro Bowl like religiously. I'm like, and you think back now, like I just bet the Pro Bowl over. And
it used to be a great bet. It used to go over every year. That used to be the best bet. And then they started changing the rules and doing different teams. Nothing good lasts forever, I guess.
Is there a live wager opportunity with the Commanders though? The Eagles get into this mode at the end of games where they just play this prevent defense, and it completely changes who they are defensively. We saw it against the Rams. I mean, they just get like they're very attacking early in games, and then when it's sort of time to not let the other team score, they just play this soft zone and get. I mean, the Rams move the ball all the way down the field with an opportunity to win that game, down 2 touchdowns essentially. Just 4 minutes before that, we saw Washington the second time they played. Like I think there's an opportunity. I get what you're saying, Bear, of either blowout or Washington wins, but. You tell me Daniels can't scramble to score a late touchdown and cover this game. I think there's an opportunity to live wager this game. If the weather's good, which it appears it's going to be, Daniels is going to, in my opinion, make enough plays with his legs, dynamic of quarterback. Nothing seems to phase him yet. Now, obviously, Jalen Carter might be one to phase him. We'll find out. But he wasn't phased in college either, right? In big moments in college, he played well. Famously took down my Ducks as a true freshman. He played well at LSU in these big moments. Like, he is that type of quarterback. So I think a live wagering opportunity in this game is possible. Also, guys, I'm going back to Gainwell. Over 11.5 rushing yards.
We're over 10 now. How great was that last week?
Yes, one rush last week, over 9.5. One rush is rare for him. He typically is a 3 or 4 rush guy. I mentioned this before. Third downs, give Barkley a break after a couple long rushes. Couple catches. So I love almost everything Gainwell each and every week. By the way, Saquon Barkley over longest rush is typically 19.5. 25.5 this week. Yeah. Talk about a price.
Makes sense.
Sammy mentioned the Kelce tax. Some of these numbers on these big dogs, man, they are taxed big this week.
Yeah, that's what amazed me was just how Detroit kind of got away from the run game last week. I mean, Washington couldn't stop them on the ground at all. But Sammy, getting back to something that Geoff had said about, like, is there a way to capitalize on the Eagles and prevent defense? I haven't looked at the numbers. I don't know if you have. Like, have you noticed anything in like the team to score last or a fourth quarter total? Like, is there? Do you think there might be an opportunity there, or do you think that might be just priced in already?
I didn't check any of that stuff. I did notice, though, Terry McLaurin is a favorite to be like the receiving leader yardage wise. That makes sense. Commanders go down early. They probably have to throw it back in. So that makes sense. I didn't play any of that stuff, but let me answer your question a different way. I did play some Barkley anytime parlayed with Josh Allen anytime. Oh, nice bet, nerd. Well, I mean, come on. Like, Barkley's going to score.
Correct.
He's minus 220. And I know some guys that laid 220. Like, some people don't care. They'll lay 220 if it should be 300.
Easily.
And there's a book that has Barkley minus 350 to score. So I went to DraftKings. They had Barkley Allen anytime plus 170. BetMGM has Barkley Allen anytime parlay 190. I mean, why would you take 170 when you could take 190? Barkley probably scores, guys. So if you have one of these American, like Vegas, you can't do this in Vegas. Right. You walk into Vegas, you go, I want to parlay Saquon Barkley with everything. They'll go, get out. But if you do it on DraftKings, FanDuel, MGM, whatever, you can bet, different games. You could take Barkley and James Cook. You could take Barkley and Josh Allen, and you're no longer laying that minus 225. It's kind of square, but guess what? In the playoffs, the best players score. They do.
Yeah. A couple more to add. De'Ami Brown has really emerged as a second wide receiver. 98 yards a couple weeks ago, 89 yards last week, or maybe it's flip-flopped, but 13 targets over the last 2 weeks. He's only lined at 45.5. It's kind of a hybrid of like what he's done lately in the season-long stuff. He's really emerged, so I would look him over. And I could see Goddard, 4.5 catches. I could see Goddard having a big day with 6 or 7 catches just because Hurts is banged up, a lot of play action. Mm-hmm. We saw once Hurts got hurt, it was Barkley didn't play action and just get the ball out of your hands. That lends itself to a tight end. So I could see Goddard having a big day. I could see De'Ami Brown having a big day.
Well, I'm glad we're talking about receivers because that leads us to our second Super Six question of the week presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. And the question is, which receiver, which player will have the most receiving yards this week? We're talking about A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, Shakir, and Travis Kelce. And do we think the answer is McLaurin here? Do we think maybe Kelce gets a little bit too much attention this year, and just because maybe we expect Washington to be behind Sammy, that McLaurin might be the guy? You mentioned that he was very priced appropriately in the market.
3-2 McLaurin, so plus 150. That's not something that I necessarily love. I looked at Shakir. They got Shakir at 6-1. Everything receiver wise goes through him. I mean, I'm looking at Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper props, and they're just so embarrassingly low. But that's because Buffalo goes through the back, the quarterback, the tight ends, and Shakir. Like, that's it. Amari Cooper's catch prop is insanely low. So if you're looking for a flyer, maybe Shakir. And here's the other thing. If you want to take a stance, because nobody is saying Jalen Hurts is healthy, and nobody's saying they're going to throw the ball. But if they do, Devontae Smith is 16-1. A.J. Brown is 35-1. I'm not saying bet them, but everybody is singing the same song on the Eagles. They're not going to pass. They can't pass. If they do, though, against a Commanders D that you can pass on, maybe one of those guys is worth a look.
I'm waiting for Geoff to get some good inside information here. I'm still waiting.
I don't think I'm going to get it, Bear. I'm trying. I don't know if they're going to give me information on Jalen Hurts. I mean, look, his under rushing is juicy, but like maybe he's fine, I mean, outside that one long carry he had, that really didn't do as much running right last week. Especially once he got a little beat up. I mean, I think they would rather prefer not to have him run the football, but it's such an important part of the offense that, and those guys. The quarterback numbers are so high in the postseason because these critical moments, you don't have defenders to basically eye a quarterback in the run game. It's like impossible. You can scheme that up, obviously, but that's one less defender in the pass game. It's just hard to defend the quarterback run. It's why we saw it a ton in the national championship game on Monday night. We've seen it with Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. Big 3rd and 2 in big moment. The Bills are running Josh Allen like a quarterback run. Like that's what they do, because it's just hard to defend. You have an extra blocker in the running back, and so it makes a lot of sense why these teams do it. And with Hurts being beat up, does that change the Eagles' offense? Does it change what they want to do? Do they RPO more with the pass instead of the run with Hurts? So I'm kind of curious how they game plan around an injury.
I'm sorry if I laughed on the air there, but you get the notifications on your laptop, and I just got a notification text from a buddy of mine. It literally just says, "Wait, the Cowboys are hiring Brian Schottenheimer." Yes. WTF?
Yes,
so,
that's what it.
Yeah, I think that's probably all of our sentiments on that.
Yeah, the goal when you fire someone is to hire someone better. I don't think they fire McCarthy, whatever they call what they did to him. I mean, I was hoping for Dion. That would have been fun to cover. Just selfishly, that would have been a lot of fun to cover.
I don't get it, but it's why the Dallas Cowboys are one of the more embarrassing organizations in pro football right now. Anyway, there's some other interesting markets that are out there. And when I did the Megapod with Will and Gil Alexander and Todd Wishnev yesterday or Wednesday, whenever it was that we recorded it, they were talking about like the Super Bowl MVP. I think Gil brought it up in passing, like not expecting anybody to have bet it, but these Super Bowl MVP prop futures that you can bet, they're up at DraftKings. And I think the question was basically something like, is Mahomes going to be the MVP if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl? And there was a reaction that no, it could be someone else. But I think if the Commanders win or the Bills win, I think we all pretty much assume that it'll be one of the quarterbacks. But I did actually make a couple of plays on these things Wednesday afternoon on some Super Bowl MVP futures. I actually did bet Xavier Worthy at 70-1 because I think maybe if he does get a little bit more involved in the offense and get some big plays, if he plays the Commanders, he certainly could score a bunch of points there. Maybe the Eagles secondary is wrapped up or injured for sure. Gets a big play. I played Zach Bond at 100-1. I played Jalen Carter 100-1 from that Eagles defense, thinking that it's there. If they win the Super Bowl, they're either going to shut down the Chiefs offense or shut down the Bills offense and not allow Allen and Mahomes to take advantage. And maybe it's not Barkley, and maybe they don't have big games offensively. So we got that. And then I played Chris Jones for the same reason, 60-1 for Kansas City, just thinking that he will have a big impact on the quarterback. So did any of you guys look at some of these things just to get ahead and maybe take a stab at a lottery type ticket?
I didn't. I have such a hard time with anyone. Like if it's the Chiefs, man, Mahomes, he's going to have to like not play a part of the game to not get the award. Just I think back to that first Super Bowl versus the 49ers when Damian Williams, I think it was, who scored 3 touchdowns. Well, obviously they're going to give it to the guy who scored 3 touchdowns. Nope, it was Mahomes. I know James White, same thing in one of in the Patriots Falcons Super Bowl, scored 3 touchdowns. Did he get it? No, it went to Brady. There's such a built-in bias towards giving it to the quarterback that, hey, when you're talking to the prices you're getting 70-1, 100-1, I'm not going to say, hey, don't bet something at triple digit odds. It's a lottery ticket. It's a fun one, and there's some logic to what you're saying. It's just, man, it is really hard with Allen, Mahomes, and Daniels. It's hard to see past the quarterback. Now, if it's Philly, hey, could you see a defensive player? Could you see Barkley? Could you see Goddard or one of the receivers? Philly, if you think Philly's going to win, sure, you could talk me into one of these guys. That's the avenue I go down. Maybe you think, hey, A.J. Brown with 2 weeks off can get healthier. You can get a real long shot number. Other than that, Sammy, man, it's just it's quarterback or nothing. It's so many times for these MVPs.
I hear James White, and I just have night terrors.
You had it?
About that. Yeah, we had 125-1.
Oh.
He scored the game-winning touchdown in overtime. It was his
three, right?
Third touchdown of the game.
Jeez.
And
Brady threw a pick 6 in that game. Not to put salt in the wound.
No, it's fine. I hear that name and I go, I was just like, I hear that name and it just brings back bad memories. Bear, we bet Carter 650-1 before the playoffs. If that hits, I'll throw a party. Yeah, we'll throw a lobster party if Jalen Carter wins.
Are we going to get an invite?
You'll be invited. Yeah, of course.
Beautiful.
Of course you will.
What does Jalen Carter have to do, Sammy, to win Super Bowl MVP? Like, what is the stat line for Jalen Carter?
Score on defense, couple of forced fumbles.
Yeah,
quiet
forced fumble.
Game. Yeah.
2 sacks, something like that. It's probably not going to happen, but it's 650 to 1 on a team that had a good path. I mean, we just bet it.
How does an offensive lineman get this award? Like, what's it for Creed Humphrey? What
ask your guy GRP about that one. Don't ask
me. His notebook. We'll put his notebook.
He bet Sewell, and then the Lions lost like the first game, which was very funny.
Wait, did he really?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Well, I was kidding. Wait, he bet Penei Sewell to win MVP?
He loved the number 750 to 1.
No, he did not.
And somebody asked him to explain the path. He said the path would be, and I think he's a great follow. I think he's very entertaining. He said that nobody would do anything on offense, and Sewell has a great game blocking. Okay.
No, wait. He bet Penei Sewell. I was kidding about that. I was just making like a.
Yes, for the third time he did. He bet.
Where's the notebook yet? I'm gonna find the notebook.
While you find the notebook, let me bring up something that I talked about the other day with a bookmaker in Vegas. He said if the Eagles win, which they're 6-point favorites, right, Bear? They should, mathematically, they should win.
Mm-hmm.
This guy told me he wants to open Barkley at plus 180 to win MVP. So if you look at the market now, he's 5 to 1. Assuming they win at home against a rookie as a 6-point favorite, I know you've missed the best numbers, but to get maybe the best player in football at 5 to 1, that should win and go to the Super Bowl, at which point Mahomes or Allen are minus a quarter, then Barkley plus 180, and then, if it's Kansas City, maybe it's Kelsey. I don't think the 5 to 1 is a bad idea with Barkley if you haven't made any bets yet on the market.
I agree with that. It's essentially a pick 'em game, right? Point maybe either way, point and a half either way.
Yeah, and then you take that 5 to 1 on Barkley that you have, and you can now bet the Chiefs to win the game if you want. I mean, you can do whatever you want.
I mean, you could middle yourself that way, but I do think of the guys mentioned, hey, Barkley at 5 to 1, just for obvious reasons, self-explanatory. He's the favorite if Philly wins. No, it could go to Hurts, it could go to somebody else, it could go to Carter. A lot of things could happen, but just their probability to win with the probability of him winning if they win it, I think 5 to 1's a really good bet of all these that we mentioned, probably the best.
Guys, fun as always. I think on the Sewell MVP, if he blocks well and nobody does anything on it, I don't think we can top that. So on that note, we will bid you farewell. Hope everybody has a great conference championship weekend.
All right, Bear. A lot to digest there, obviously, after the game of group chat. Only 2 games, so there was a lot kind of thrown at you. And now we'll finish up with our best bets here. Again, only 2 games, not a lot to choose from. You have a side. I'll have a prop. I'll let you go first, Bear. What's your best bet?
Yeah, I have a side, which is kind of a prop as well. I hope I don't get in trouble for that again. But as we kicked around in the gambling group chat, like there are only 2 games. These are games that if they were just like middle of a Sunday afternoon in the midst of a normal NFL schedule at the current numbers that they are you really going to be dying to bet on these 2 games? Sides, I don't know. Maybe you do feel strongly about a side, but the thing I feel most strongly about this week is Philadelphia scoring points. We saw even with Kenny Pickett at quarterback in that second meeting in D.C. where their offense scored 33 points still, and the Commanders couldn't stop the Eagles on the ground. So my best bet of the week is the Philadelphia Eagles team total over 26.5. That's 3 touchdowns and 2 field goals or 4 touchdowns. It feels pretty. I feel pretty good about the Eagles going in there and running the ball at will on Washington. Whether some of the injuries the Eagles have on the defensive side of the ball, if that catches up on them, who knows? But I would expect Philadelphia to have a good bit of success on the ground against a Washington team that, despite the win last week, they did allow, 8 yards of play. The turnovers really helped them. We'll see if those turnovers kind of regress this week. Maybe they don't get the turnover luck that they got last week in Detroit. So Eagles over 26.5, minus 122. So it's not a normal minus 110, but I'm still more than happy to lay that.
Bear, I'm hoping this game moves like the Rams-Eagles game where we get like some rogue 7s popping up, but I'll take the Commanders plus 7 if I can get it.
We might. I'm surprised that it hit 6.5 at a couple of spots out there. It's 6 in most spots, but there are some 6.5s.
I'm holding out hope there. I will probably take the dog there. And my best bet is in the other game, Bear. Chiefs and Bills now, 4 straight years in the postseason. I'm taking Josh Allen over 48.5 rushing yards. When these teams meet in the postseason, Josh Allen is a huge part of the game plan. The last 3 playoff games they have played, Allen has 88 yards rushing, 68 yards rushing, and 72 yards rushing. And the reason for that, Bear, is the Chiefs play a ton of man coverage. They pressure a lot. And when you do that, typically, no one's on the quarterback. And you have to make plays with your legs. And Allen has killed the Chiefs with plays with his legs, even going back to this season on that 4th down touchdown to seal that game. And with the amount of, I think, the Chiefs' ability to lock down the wide receivers of Buffalo with McDuffie and Watson, there'll be times when Josh Allen has to scramble to create plays because no one's open. Like, there's a lot of opportunities in this game, I feel like, for Josh Allen to make plays with his legs. Plus, the Chiefs allow a lot of yards to quarterbacks rushing who don't normally rush the ball. Tua had 25 yards against them in a playoff game. Stroud had 42 yards. Lamar, obviously, Purdy in the Super Bowl had 12 yards above his average. So the Chiefs just always allow quarterbacks to run the football, just as sort of a flaw of their defense. Give me Josh Allen here over 40.5 rushing yards.
And it's not really even a flaw, Jeff. It's the one thing as a defense that you can't account for. It's kind of a credit to Spags and his defense that they're able to game plan and scheme and break down and shut down what teams want to do. And this like goes back to the whole, like, remember Nick Saban's defense at Alabama and like, oh, they can't stop the mobile quarterback. Yeah, it's because they're so good at stopping everything else. You just couldn't contain a quarterback. We just like everything breaks down and here we are. Quarterback's going to take advantage take what he can get with his legs. So it's more of a credit to Chiefs defense that not allowing those big plays through the air and whatever else. So yeah, I can get behind you there, and hopefully our viewers and listeners can get behind all of our plays this week. Appreciate all the positive words on social media when all the feedback to our best bets record this year, which 31-11 between the two of us. That's not too shabby, my man.
Yeah. Well, let's hopefully we can finish strong this weekend, because
exactly now that we publicized it, it means we got a couple of losers coming up in the May, right? Exactly. Should have just kept it a secret, but no, we don't want to keep it a secret. What we'll keep a secret is our podcast schedule for now, coming up from New Orleans for the Super Bowl. We'll keep you posted on that once we finalize it and figure out where we're going to be and when. But for Sammy and Will, for Jeff, I'm Bear. Appreciate all of you again for listening on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast, YouTube, our Bear Bets YouTube channel, and wherever else. And remember, the less you bet, the more you lose when you win.